A very good evening and welcome to the English News Bulletin here on Rwanda Television. We believe you had a good start of the week. We'll begin with the headlines. The Parliamentary Committee on State Budget and Patrimony noted that the agriculture and livestock sector should continue to receive adequate funding to boost productivity. Now, economic stakeholders say that the African Continental Free Trade Area has yet to fully meet its goals, citing persistent trade barriers in some African countries. And on the international scene, heavy rainfall in southwest China's Chongqing has triggered widespread flooding, leaving at least 3 people dead and 19 others missing. My name is Olivnet and it's always a pleasure to have you on board. Now let's take a look at the news in details. The Parliamentary Committee on State Budget and Patrimony stated that the agriculture and livestock sector should continue to receive an adequate budget so that its productivity can keep increasing. They made these remarks while members of the Parliament were giving recommendations on the priorities that should guide the preparation of the 2026-2027 National Budget Law and the medium-term expenditure framework. The agriculture and livestock sector plays a major role in Rwanda's economy and in improving citizens' welfare. While MPs were presenting recommendations on what should be considered in preparing the draft law determining the state budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year and the medium-term framework, they once again emphasized that this sector, along with other areas that deserve special attention. Although the 2026-2027 budget amounts to 7,796 billion Rwandan francs, representing an increase of 844 billion Rwandan francs compared to the 2025-2026 budget, Honorable Bakundfite Christine expressed concerns that the budget is still insufficient because of compensation payments the government is required to make. The chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on State Budget and Patrimony, Honorable Det Uwamariya, explained that the issue of paying appropriate compensation is among the matters already planned for. While reviewing the preliminary budget for the 2026-2027 and the medium-term strategies, MPs noted that the recommendations they provide are based on issues raised by citizens during their visits across the country, as well as on resolutions they have previously submitted to the government. Moving ahead to other matters, Rwandan peacekeepers serving under the United Nations mission in South Sudan were today awarded prestigious UN service medals during a colorful ceremony held at the UN base camp in Malakal, Upper Nile State, in recognition of their commitment and professionalism in advancing peace and protecting civilians. The decorated contingent serving as Rwandan BAT 2 was praised for its outstanding contribution to peacekeeping operations in one of South Sudan's most volatile regions. Presiding over the ceremony, UN Miss Force Commander Major General Junhui Wu commended the Rwandan contingent as he paid tribute to the dedication, discipline, and unwavering commitment to international peace. Rwanda's senior national representative in South Sudan, Colonel Emmanuel Kanowaire, said the contingent has carried out its duties with determination despite operational challenges. He emphasized that the medals being awarded today symbolize more than completion of service, adding that they represent sacrifice, commitment, courage, and devotion to principles of international peacekeeping. The ceremony was attended by senior UN Miss officials, military officers, and representatives from various peacekeeping contingents serving in Upper Nile State. To more news, Rwanda has received a delegation from Timor-Leste on a study visit to learn from Rwanda's experience in building peace, unity, reconciliation, good governance, and development, particularly how it rebuilt itself after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. We do have a detailed report. The delegates began their visit in Rwanda at the Kigali Genocide Memorial, where they visited various parts that makes the memorial. The head of the delegation, Helder da Costa, said they wished to understand how Rwanda went through the history of genocide and managed to rebuild itself and live in peace.
And in particular to Timor-Leste, because we shared some of the history in the past. We also suffered from the conflict in the past 5 years ago. And now we look at Rwanda, it gives us a lot of inspiration to model the Rwanda's experience. Of course, not not one size fits all. Yeah, Rwanda's experience is unique, and one thing that we learn from here is that you have the strategic leadership, visionary leadership, and you also have the political courage to change this country based on unity, accountability, and you think big. These three magic bullets for us is inspirational.
The G7 Secretariat from Timor-Leste study visit aims at promoting knowledge exchange and strengthening collaboration on governance, peace building, socio-economic transformation, and institutional development. Throughout the visit, the delegation will engage with key public institutions and stakeholders to gain insights into Rwanda's approaches to national unity and reconciliation, decentralization and good governance, economic transformation, investment promotion, digital transformation, public service delivery, and community-centered development initiatives. Richard Niwenshuti, the Chief Executive Officer of the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, stated that the delegation is visiting Rwanda as part of implementing agreements aimed at sharing knowledge on the development journey. The study visit further provides opportunities for the delegation to explore Rwanda's experience in promoting investment and ease of doing business, strengthening public-private dialogue, advancing digital government services through platforms such as Irembo, and promoting effective mechanisms for monitoring development outcomes. The delegation from Timor-Leste is composed of 27 people, including experienced individuals in politics, governance, and research. They're in Rwanda for a 6-day visit. Ahead, the president of the Basketball Africa League, Amadou Galofal, who is currently in Rwanda for the 2026 BL tournament taking place in Kigali, says Africa must further invest in and empower its young people to secure its future independence and long-term development. Speaking in an interview with our colleague Emmanuel Munyarukumbuzi, he highlighted the league's growing economic impact, signaling an expanding sports and business ecosystem on the continent. Let's take a look at the conversation.
Talking about moving towards the right direction, there's a projected 5.4 billion economic footprint, 37,000 created jobs, 250 million contribution to host countries' GDP, a franchise model in the pipeline or in the works, extraordinary figures and facts. But for a young person sitting here in Kigali, in Dakar, in Rabat, and in Lagos, what does it really mean to them? And what must they do right now to be ready to step into that transformation?
I think what it means is the ambition and the dream, actually, we sold from day one when we announced the launch of the Basketball Africa League in 2019 in Charlotte. Commissioner Adam Silver was talking about this league becoming an economic growth engine for Africa, for the continent, because of the tremendous amount of talent we had. So this league, we talked about it, will create jobs, will spur the development of infrastructure, and will contribute to economic development across the continent. So those figures, I think, are a testament to that ambition that we have. So we want the youth in Africa to dream very big, to have incredible ambition, because we know that we have the tools, we have the talent to really make those dreams come to fruition. And I think those numbers that you talk about, the $4.4 billion is a projection based on the $250 million that's been realized since the league started. The 37,000 jobs are going to become 650,000 jobs in 10 years. So just think about the scale that we can reach if more investment comes into the league, because we are confident that with the talent we have, if we build the capacity, and also if the infrastructure, is built, which some countries are starting to do, certainly following in the example that Rwanda and Senegal and South Africa, some of these other countries have started. I mean, what we've been able to achieve here in Kigali since 2021, I mean, is a litmus test, I think. Everybody who comes to visit, people who were here 6 years ago in the first edition, seeing all the transformation and also just seeing how there's a very knowing public that is watching the games, that knows about basketball. You could tell that there's a basketball culture that's being, I'm not talking about being built, but now this is entrenched. When I see the teams, how they are organized, the local Rwandan league, and attracting top talent from all around the world. So this is the influence that the Basketball Africa League wish to have all across Africa. So Rwanda is a case study for us. It's really an example, but also the league as a whole, how we are managing to bring basketball and sport as a business on the mainstream conversation. When I was here last week during the Africa CEO Forum, it was great to see that sports as a business occupied center stage. Similarly, I think maybe 2 weeks before in Nairobi at that Africa Forward Summit, I know there was a lot of conversation around sports as a business. This is what we've always, envision that this day will come. We're only scratching the surface because it's all based on experiences we have ourselves in terms of navigating through these industries in the US and other parts of the world. We always felt that we had to think inward and look at building value around our talent here on the continent and not just exporting talent to other parts. Talent is going to continue to go somewhere else because it's just, the nature of business and really everything. Like the best will strive to go where they can best maximize their opportunity, their earning opportunities. But we want to make sure that on the continent we have a very respectable platform that can compete with any others around the world.
Just very briefly, I would like you to describe Rwanda's contribution to the BAL success, because you started in 2021 in partnership with the Rwanda Development Board as well as Visit Rwanda. So in a few words, if you could describe
enabling us
that.
to launch the league in the middle of the pandemic. Because at the time we looked at, where could we stage, launch our league in the middle of the pandemic, and Rwanda was the only place really on the African continent where we felt confident that the same operations that the NBA had set up in Orlando, in Florida, to finish the NBA season and the WNBA season, the G League season, we could do that here in a complete bubble because of the visionary leadership and the support that we know we could count on here. And then you had BK Arena, Kigali Arena at the time. So, you had the infrastructure, you had the enabling environment in terms of really a functioning infrastructure where we felt our operational standards could be met, so this is where it starts. And then every year, building on that partnership, 3 years first, and then we extended to 5 years with the Rwanda Development Board and Visit Rwanda. It is really something that's been fundamental and foundational to the success of the BAL today. So, and all the other partners that I'm talking about coming in, and it's great, and I think they've had time to look at the evolution and also bought in the dream. But we would always be grateful for those foundational partners who believed in the opportunity before even we bounced basketball here.
Now, moving ahead, investors, politicians, and economic analysts say the African Continental Free Trade Area has yet to fully achieve its goals, as continued trade barriers in some African countries still hinder the free movement of people and goods, cross-border business. And Gladys has the details.
Robert Wafakurira, an investor, says the African Common Market is one of the key solutions that could help the continent achieve its economic ambitions. However, he highlights several major challenges preventing the trade bloc from delivering the expected results. The major challenges are mainly the lack of roads connecting different countries, as well as restrictions on the movement of people, where individuals are still required to apply for visas in order to enter the other countries freely and conduct business smoothly. For trade to function effectively, people should be able to travel and do business freely at any time they need. Another major issue is transportation infrastructure, especially railway and road networks, which are still inadequate. Air transport is also not easy because flights between some African countries are either unavailable or take very long routes, making travel expensive. To successfully do business with others, people need to travel, meet face-to-face, make agreements, and discuss how business operations and partnerships will be carried out. The Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, notes that although challenges still hinder the effective implementation of the agreement, recent statistics indicate that progress is being made.
We have succeeded to conclude all of the protocols that were directed by the Assembly of Heads of States and Government. We have concluded rules of origin negotiations, and commercially meaningful trade is starting to happen under the rules of the AFCFTA. We're also seeing commercially meaningful outcomes from the AFCFTA, early days as it is, of course, and all the progress that has been made. In the year 2024, the impact of the AFCFTA resulted in increased intra-Africa trade. According to the African Exim Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, intra-Africa trade increased by 12.4% to over $220 billion in the year 2024. According to the same report, intra-Africa trade is well poised to reach approximately $230 billion this year. And therefore, the data is clear that we are moving in the right direction.
Wamkele Mene says African countries must strengthen cooperation if they are to fully unlock the potential of the continental market, which is widely seen as central to Africa's economic transformation.
A unified, integrated market cannot function effectively without greater mobility within our continent. Visa restrictions, fragmented immigration systems, and an uneven implementation of the free movement commitments continue to constrain our growth, our economic growth and potential as a continent. Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and recently Togo, as of a few days ago, are some of the countries that have made progress in this area of free movement of persons. In the countries that I've mentioned, all Africans have a right to visa on arrival. I urge other member states of the African Union to follow suit and to enable accelerated growth of our continent through movement of persons.
Currently, intra-African trade accounts for just 16% of the continent's total trade. Africa also faces a financing gap of approximately $1.006 trillion needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and keep pace with other regions of the world.
Now moving ahead, the SP Global Ratings has affirmed Rwanda's credit rating at B+/B with a stable outlook, citing the country's stable economic conditions and continued efforts towards sound fiscal management despite global and regional challenges. According to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, Rwanda recorded economic growth of 9.3% in 2025, up from 7.2% in 2024. The growth was driven by strong performance across agriculture, industry, and services. The report projects growth to moderate to 6.8% in 2026 due to near-term pressures linked to rising global fuel costs associated with the Middle East situation. However, growth is expected to improve gradually and average 7.1% between 2027 and 2029. The S&P Global Ratings also highlighted Rwanda's continued investment in strategic infrastructure projects, particularly the new Kigali International Airport, which is expected to strengthen regional connectivity, support tourism, and contribute to long-term economic diversification. Central to this information, Rwanda's debt structure remains sustainable, with about 89% of external debt classified as concessional and contracted at long maturities and low interest rates. It also pointed to ongoing fiscal consolidation efforts supported by growth in domestic revenue and prudent expenditure management, while acknowledging global economic uncertainties and regional pressures, including the impact of the Middle East conflict on fuel prices, supply chains, and inflation. S&P maintained that Rwanda's policy direction and institutional resilience continue to support macroeconomic stability. And the report further stated that proactive measures such as expanding fuel reserves and diversifying supply sources are helping Rwanda strengthen resilience against external shocks. The S&P's affirmation comes as Rwanda continues efforts to position itself as a regional hub for investment, services, and innovation, while advancing its long-term development priorities. Now to more news. After 4 years serving as a political counsellor and head of the political and governance team at the UK High Commission in Rwanda, David Rinett says music, culture, and entertainment became an important part of diplomacy and building people-to-people connections. By day, he was a British diplomat helping shape UK-Rwanda relations, and by night, many Kigali knew him as DJ Dao. We have details with William Evans.
Tonight we have the pleasure of having a conversation with David Rinett, who has been in Rwanda for 4 years, of course, on the ones and twos, but also as a diplomat. Today, we have a conversation on diplomacy, but also entertainment and culture. Mr. David, welcome to RwandaTV News.
Murakoze. It's nice to meet you, William.
For 4 years you've been in Rwanda. When I say on the ones and twos, but also a diplomat, what exactly has been your post in Rwanda for the past 4 years?
Sure. So yeah, I'm David, and I've been here for 4 years as the political counsellor and the head of political and governance at the British High Commission in Kigali. But when I first got here to Kigali in 2022, I was quite excited and nervous. You know, when you move places, it's always sort of quite adventurous and something new. But I really remember, because I moved with my family and the kids, that it was super easy to settle in. I mean, Kigali is a welcoming city. It's a city where you can get around easily and you understand things quickly. And people were also really welcoming. So I had a really good first few weeks and at work in the city, but then also in the music scene where people were equally welcoming early on.
On the move, you come one as a father, as a diplomat, but also as a DJ. Did music in any way help you connect better with people more than traditional diplomacy would have done, especially in Rwanda?
I think one of the challenges of a diplomatic lifestyle is that you move somewhere new and you don't know anyone. And the first people you meet would be other diplomats and people in certain sort of ministries, which is great. But it is sometimes not that easy in the first few months to really get out there, to understand, to listen, from a wider sort of section of society, and I think, as I was saying, the music part really complements that, right? So for example, I went to a couple of music festivals, met a couple of bands, and those people, told me their view of sort of how Rwanda is sort of evolving, and that was a really useful complement. Slightly different conversations, slightly different connections. I learned a bit of Kinyarwanda through that, Those kind of things help, and then actually they helped me also in the job, because I then was able to make those connections, to engage more and actually, understand Rwanda better.
Were there moments when they actually noticed that you're both a diplomat and a DJ? Were there moments where they sort of misunderstood you?
As you know, there are now some, younger government officials and sort of younger contacts that I engage with that might actually enjoy a music night, etc. So with some of those contacts, I was quite open early on, and they really appreciated it. And again, I was actually able to get some of my work contacts, some of my Rwandan friends that might work in an official capacity also to come to some of the music events, which was great, again, bringing that together. So, I think one of the things that is probably true for every country in the world, but also for Rwanda, is that history is complex, and from the outside, you don't always understand, everything and the background, and that's particularly true for Rwanda, right? So I think one of the things that I did early on, and that I also sort of recommend for all of my personal visitors who came to visit from the UK, but also official visitors, to start with a visit to the Kigali Genocide Memorial. I think that's really an important starting point, and that's what I did very early on, I think on my 3rd day in the country in 22. I think that's when you start to understand the complexity and how much the country has developed. I mean, that's one of the other things that people sometimes don't quite understand, and I didn't fully understand, and only when I came here in 22 did I realize, gosh, what a journey has it been for Rwanda? How amazing is it that the country has transformed from where it was in 94 after the genocide against the Tutsi to now. So I think those are some of the key things that I would share with the visitors and that I have told people back in the UK as well.
What has been, let's say, your biggest moment, your highlight, a moment that you're going to go back with, but also a particular probably place or food or thing that is stuck with you for the 4 years? You're going to miss it, you will remember it forever?
I think our favorite place is Lake Kivu, and seeing the fishermen go out in the morning. You know, favorite food you asked about. I love akabanga. I bought, I think, 10 little bottles of akabanga to take with me to my next job, but also a lot of other things. But then at work, of course, as well, I had a lot of really memorable moments. I think the most rewarding thing for me at work is when you see the impacts of the work you do. And I remember a visit to Eastern Province in my first year, where we were looking at the results of a project. We were working with Minecofin and others on public financial management systems, school data management systems, very complex things. But I was in a village talking to teachers and understanding how these systems, the digitalized systems that we had supported and worked with the government on, had really changed the teachers' lives, had changed the lives of the people on the ground. And those interactions where you see the impact of your work, those moments will also stay with me for sure.
Considering young people that are talented, one side, but also into the corporate world where they have to do their job really well, but also have sort of talents that they have to develop, but also maybe earn from. If you had a word or two to say to these young people, boys and girls, what would it be?
I'm aware in many countries in the world there might be sort of different conceptions, for example, about DJing, but I think we're now in a day and age where you can really bring it together and be yourself and sort of share your full personality. Of course, be mindful of the culture, be mindful of how you're perceived. So as I was saying, I would maybe not sort of start in my work meetings with saying that, right? I mean, read the room, but then, do what you want to do. And I think in the end, it will actually enhance your experience. You will meet more people. And, as I was saying earlier in the interview, bringing these things together can actually get you further, both in your career, but even in anything else you're doing. It can really complement each other. So I would really encourage young people to do it in a sort of, of course, in a way where they think about the different elements, but it's possible to do it, and be yourself, and I think it'll take you further.
We'll now take a short commercial break and then come back with news on the international scene. And this marks the end of tonight's bulletin. Thank you so much, dear viewers, for staying with us. On behalf of the entire news team, we wish you a fruitful week ahead. Good night.